Hello there, and welcome to The Meaningful Stitch. This is episode 43, and I'm Amy Palko, and I'm coming to you from Edinburgh, Scotland. And this is where I like to share my knitting practice and my knitting projects with you all. If you have not visited this channel before and this is your first time, then thank you so much for checking this out. If you like what you find, please do consider subscribing. And if you've been here before, thank you so much for returning. You'll know the score. There is a description box below that gives you all the show notes, and there is a link to a Patreon page where you will find more extensive show notes that includes photographs, and that is free to access by everybody. There is also a Ko-Fi link, and there is also my mailing address there in case it's required. So that's all the admin. If you have been watching the last few episodes, then you may know that I am currently in the midst of a summer experiment to try and free up the flow of my podcasting, really, and to try and experiment with more frequent posting and less structure. So that's been an interesting process. I am finding that I am being able to podcast a lot more often, and so I have been posting pretty much on a weekly basis. However, you may have noticed that last week there was no podcast, and that is because it was an exceptionally busy week and I couldn't possibly fit it in. And this week is also a very busy week, so I'm recording this on Tuesday with my intentions to post it for patrons on Friday. So if you are a patron, you will receive this video 24 hours earlier than everybody else. And then it'll be posted on YouTube for everybody on Saturday. So lots of stuff going on, and consequently lots and lots to share with you. But one of the things that I wanted to start with actually is a card. Now, this is something that I was doing for, well, many episodes. I would draw a card from one of my many Oracle decks, and I haven't really been including that in the more recent episodes, but I have received some feedback that that was actually being really missed. So I thought I would bring it back for today and share with you a card that I drew for my Zoom call, which is part of one of the patron tiers, the Maynard tier, where we meet every Wednesday for an online circle, basically. And I generally draw a card for that circle, and the one that I drew has really been with me in really interesting ways, so I wanted to share that card with you just in case it's relevant for you too. So the card that I drew was this one here, and it's The Village. It's from the deck The Archetypes by The Wild Unknown, which is a wonderful series of oracle cards by Kim Krans. And I'm just going to read you the words that we have for the village. The village, the hometown, the family, the tribe. The village presents us with a conundrum. On one hand, it's the place that feels most like home, the place to which you can always return. Nostalgia and comfort draw us back. On the other hand, it's the very place you must leave in order to grow. Around the village, an unspoken boundary exists, one most villagers do not want you to cross. Though some support your leaving, still you hear whispers of doubt as you venture beyond its borders, leaving them behind. The energy of the village is present any time we feel restricted by a certain group, community, family, place, or ideology. It may have served us in the past, yet staying within its parameters will never satiate our thirst for life. Thank the village for all it has provided, knowing you will someday return. For now, the world awaits. And I thought that was such an interesting card for many reasons, but one of the reasons is to do with this experiment in particular. You know, I've received overwhelmingly positive feedback on this particular experiment of releasing myself from the structure of the podcast, which is very much, you know, that kind of traditional structure of what's on my needles, what's off my needles, what's going to be on my needles, and switching my focus away from kind of the production line of the knitting practice and back to the practice itself. And like I said, overwhelmingly positive support and feedback. And then there's also been some who haven't been enjoying the structure change quite so much. the structuralists change quite so much and who aren't really on board with this experiment, and it's really not for them. And, you know, that's completely fine. You know, I think we have to release people to follow their creativity. And, you know, I need to be allowed to do that as much as everybody else does. I think when we try and place parameters around our creativity and around each other's creativity, then we start to really limit the possibilities for their self-expression. And that feels like a very deadening thing. It feels very numbing, and actually it doesn't result in sustainability or joyful creation. So yes, I'm exploring, you know, what does that mean for me? You know, how do I continue to show up for my own creativity, for my own practice? I'm continuing to ask where my joy lives, and how I can access more of that, and how I can share more of that. And I want to be in a really active relationship with all of that. And yes, absolutely, like I said, there will be some who don't enjoy that so much, and that's completely fine. I don't expect to be liked by everybody. I don't expect my podcast to be enjoyed by everybody. As Dita Von Teese once said, you can be the juiciest, sweetest peach in all the world, and there will still be people who don't like peaches. And I've always tried to remind myself of that, you know, when you come across some critiques that, you know, aren't that favourable. It's completely fine. And yes, I still will continue on and explore what's here for me, and what's calling to be expressed in this particular moment through my practice and through my podcast. So yes, the village. I think it's a really fascinating archetype to explore, and I think we can see it present in our creativity as well, in our practice, and the way in which we're called up to explore our knitting. You know, there's some projects that feel very comfortable and which we return to often and give us great peace and kind of really help us restore that equilibrium of our heart. And that's a beautiful thing, and that feels like a really positive expression of the village, this kind of comfort zone, like coming home to that. There's also the village, the creative village, the creative community that we're all a part of, and you know, the really positive, beautiful aspects of that, and how it can really lift us up and inspire us and create really meaningful connections. And I'm consistently, you know, enormously grateful for all of that, for all of those connections and that community building up of one another. So yes, there's that, and then there's the desire to leave the community, to leave the village, the desire to you know, spread our wings a bit and try things which are not necessarily so comfortable. As one of the little side notes in that particular guide said, you know, the village is with you because it's a mindset. You know, so if that mindset is calling us back to stay comfortable, to stay doing the things that we've always done, then, you know, the invitation then is also to branch out and do something a little bit different, and to, you know, to try our wings. You know, perhaps that means that we try knitting a jumper for the first time, a sweater, when we've never done that before. Or maybe it means that we're going to cast on a lace project, and, you know, it's the very first lace project we'll ever have tried. Sometimes, you know, it will mean we try a different craft altogether, and we begin a learning circle that really requires us to embark upon a quest, upon a journey, you know, to enter into a new world of learning and of craft. So, you know, I'm going to be talking a little bit about that about that later on. But yes, I think the village is very inspiring in many ways, and so as an archetype for us to explore as makers. So I hope that that's given you some food for thought, because it's certainly given me lots of food for thought. Okay, I'm going to tell you what I'm wearing next, because I almost forgot that last time, so I'm going to remember this time. This is the Sceles top, and it's by Anna Maltz. I have knitted it in Lithuanian linen. I've knitted it in 2 shades of Lithuanian linen. We've got this gorgeous hot pink here, and what you can't quite see is like a very dark purple, and it's a grape. I don't know if you can see a bit better, perhaps not, because I'm wearing a black dress underneath it. So it's lots and lots of positive ease, inches and inches and inches of positive ease. It's very open, it's very lacy and drapey. I absolutely love this piece. It feels like a really comfortable piece to wear today because it's a little bit humid. We have had higher temperatures than we would normally have here in Scotland, and we've had lots of blue sky. However, today is a little bit overcast, but it still feels a bit muggy. So this is a nice loose light top to wear on a day like this. And of course it brings a little bit of colour. This item here had been on my favourites list for quite a long time because I saw Jess of Ginger Twist wearing hers in the shop one day, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. Her version is completely glorious, and actually I saw her wearing it on her Instagram feed just the other day there and thought, oh dear, I think I want to knit another one, maybe all in one colour. And she's got a lovely very dark one. I think maybe it's a dark green and a dark purple, but it almost comes across looking like black, and it is glorious. It's really beautiful. So yes, maybe there'll be another, although I have to say, I'm not sure I really enjoyed the knitting process of this quite so much. It was a bit of a labour because of the incredibly wide circumference. There was obviously a lot of stitches on my needle, and it is this kind of overall lace work that you're doing, so you have to kind of pay attention to it also. But I do really like how it turned out. So perhaps this is one of those more product-based knits, and that's quite unusual for me because normally I focus more on the practice rather than on the product. So yes. That said, like I said, I do really like it, and it is a favourite, and it is something that comes out in the summertime because I don't generally have a lot of use for it any other time of the year. I mean, I could wear it as like a light layering piece over anything really, so it doesn't necessarily have to be seasonally specific, but that said, I do just wear it in the summertime. So there we go, that is what I'm wearing. Now, I only had one thing that I have completed since I saw you last, and that is the Hannah cardigan that I knitted for my nephew Alex. Now, you might remember that I had been asked to knit a cardigan for my nephew so that he could wear it on the wedding day of his mummy and daddy and my brother, and so I of course said yes. We had a little look around for projects, for designs. I found a beautiful one. It's the Hannah cardigan, and it is by Noelle Knits, which you'll find on Instagram. And I decided that I was going to knit it in some yarn that I had inherited from my gran. And it's this yarn here. We have no idea what it was, but there was 4 large skeins like this, and it's DK weight. We're not sure of the fibre. And it had a little label attached that said 83p. So that gives you an idea of how old this yarn is, because I don't think you could buy much for 83 pence anymore, let alone 4 skeins of yarn. But it's this beautiful blue, and they wanted it to be this kind of like navy because he had a little suit to wear and they wanted it to go with that. So the design was really lovely and a lot of fun to knit, and it really did actually push me outside of my comfort zone because it was in half fisherman's rib, and I had never knitted half fisherman's rib before, but I really enjoyed doing it. And I've seen people say that it's very similar to brioche, and then it's difficult to discern whether something is brioche or whether it's fisherman's rib. And having now knitted a cardigan in half fisherman's rib, I kind of understand where that kind of confusion is coming from, because basically you are creating the same structure of fabric, but you're creating it in 2 different ways. It's like 2 different techniques to create the same fabric. And so that was really interesting to explore that, because I've knitted quite a lot of brioche, and I've knitted brioche lace, and I've done a lot with increases and decreases, and it's something that I've really enjoyed. That said, I don't think I've ever knitted a brioche garment, so maybe that will be on my dream knitting list for later this year. But yes, this half fisherman's rib really gave me an opportunity to explore again the kind of the structure of the fabric, but creating it in a different way. I really enjoyed the look of this particular cardigan, and in fact, if Noelle Knits ever decided to create an adult sized version, I would absolutely be casting it on. It's got a beautiful increase on the back, which is just so neat, and then all of the increases down the front to create the shaping is just so neat, and it just sat so beautifully. And I shortened it a little bit, which in retrospect maybe I shouldn't have done, because I had measured his back and kind of where we wanted the cardigan to come, but then because of the structure of it, I think it kind of lifted it up a little bit at the front. So in retrospect, I think I should have knitted it to the length specified in the pattern. We live and learn. but that it wasn't a bad fit or anything. Just I think that it would probably do him a little bit longer if it was longer in the body, which actually, you know, I could always take it back and add an extra inch or two. So that's not a big deal. The other thing about this cardigan that kind of pushed me outside of my comfort zone is that it encouraged you to do a tubular bind off. Now, I have attempted tubular bind offs in the past. I have generally ended up with quite messy finishes, which I think is the absolute opposite of what you're aiming at with a tubular bind off. Everybody always talks about how beautiful and neat it is, and how the ribbing just kind of rolls right around that edge. And when I do see it on other people's knits, it absolutely does look very neat. But it has never really looked that way for me. And so I decided, okay, well, this is a baby knit. It is a lot less stitches than, say, a garment for myself. So this is a perfect opportunity to you know, watch a couple more tutorials on this, to get a bit clearer on what it is that I'm trying to do, and to slow down and finish this in the way that I want to be finished. So I did that, and I watched some tutorials on the Italian sewn bind off, and I got it. You know, after a while, I made a mistake, and when I made the mistake, which was, you know, you've got a very particular set of instructions that you're moving through, depending on whether the next stitch is a knit stitch or a purl stitch in your 1x1 rib. And I made a mistake, and actually that was a really good thing, because it's when I made the mistake that I realised what the actual process was doing. And I think sometimes it's only when we actually make a mistake in our knitting that we get a sense of what it is that we're supposed to be doing. So I discovered what I was supposed to be doing by making this particular mistake, and that meant that from that point onwards, I could read my knitting. So it wouldn't matter if I put it down and picked it back up again. I could look and see where I was and understand what was required next. And so, yeah, sometimes making mistakes is a really good thing. I think it's something we really need to embrace as makers. It is part of our practice. After all, it's a practice, not a perfect. Certainly not in my situation anyway, or in my making. But yes, so I practiced this Italian sewn bind off. I made mistakes, I fixed my mistakes, and I understood the practice and the process so much better. So it has an Italian sewn bind off all the way around, and I did all of the setup stitches as well, as you would do for a tubular cast off. And so it does look neat. Yay! So I would actually feel like I could do it again on a different garment. I would also say that the Saturday Shrug, or actually the Weekend Shrug collection from Jackie Rose, they all use a tubular bind off technique, and Jackie has a very helpful tutorial on YouTube for that, and that would also be a really good place to practice that, because it's less stitches. You know, you're just working your way around. But certainly I think baby garments, if you want to try a technique, if you want to leave the village of your own mind, then you might want to cast on a baby item, an item for a small child, or a small accessory, just so that you get an opportunity to explore that technique in a smaller piece, rather than trying to expand it into, say, a large cabled jumper. So maybe start with a small cabled baby knit first, and then move on to cables and other things. So if cables are the thing that feels like a stretch for you. So yes, I that was really interesting, and I really enjoyed the process. And last of all, I needed buttons. Now, I think we've had button conversations on this podcast before, because the buttons. I went to John Lewis because John Lewis is actually one of the easiest places for me to get to on the bus. So I hopped on the bus, and I'm there within about 20 minutes. And they have a haberdashery department, which unfortunately has absolutely seen better days. And their button collection, which used to be really pretty extensive, has been pretty much wound down, and there's hardly anything there. So I did not find buttons at John Lewis. Fortunately, I was going to Ginger Twist the following day, so I decided I was going to have a wee look through their button collection. In fact, I'd gone for lunch with Rebecca Clow of the Crochet podcast at one of our favourite cafes called Art and Vintage, which is just round the corner really from Ginger Twist, in the area of Edinburgh known as Abbey Hill. So we'd gone there, we'd had a lovely lunch. I always love their veggie metzi box or metzi plate. It's always delicious, and they do a gluten-free version for me, which is perfect. So we went there, and then after that we popped into Ginger Twist. And there I picked up some yarn, which I have forgotten to bring over to show you. So I will pop a photograph of that in here. But it is Kremke Soul Wool, and I think it's called Reborn Cotton. They had just got some in, and it's a beautiful marl. The one that I chose is kind of like an oatmeal with a kind of a hot pink and like a peachy pink, and it's really, really pretty. So anyway, I got that. And I also got buttons. And the buttons that I bought are these beautiful little dark blue stars. And so they looked really cute. So I sewed them onto the jumper, onto the cardigan, and I got it all finished off in plenty time, washed and blocked, to take it round on, what day? I think we took it round on Tuesday. So they had it in plenty time for the weekend. So that was a relief. It's always interesting when you give yourself or when you're given a deadline, and you really feel that energy coursing through you in order to try and make sure that you hit your mark. And then you do, and then it's out there and it's done, and you get to tick that box. There's something about that feeling of completion that's very encouraging. And also I think we wrap up the energy that we've invested within that particular piece too. It's like, it's like the last sentence of a novel or the last line of a poem. It finishes off the whole piece, and then it's contained, it's complete, and now it gets to go out into the world and have its own life. And certainly this cardigan is now off with with my nephew, and we had the wedding, and he didn't need it because it was absolutely scorching. So I don't have any photographs of him wearing it because honestly I think he would have melted the wee sole. So yes, it wasn't actually required on the date, which is absolutely fine. It was there as a backup in case he did need it, in case he got a little bit chilly. But as it wasn't required, but it was present and it was there and it did what it needed to do. So job done. Tick. So I'm not going to talk a huge amount about the wedding, but I will show you a wee photograph of me and the children all dressed up for it and ready to go, because you'll see the boys in their kilts and their kilt socks. I would have had a full set of kilt socks there, So all the boys in the photograph, that would be my two boys and Aurora's partner Sam. I have knitted all of them their kilt socks. However, we got a panicky phone call from my middle son Seb on the morning that we were supposed to be picking him up, that he couldn't find his kilt socks anywhere. He turned the whole place upside down and they weren't there. He said he was sure they would be there somewhere, but he couldn't find them. So we had an emergency stop off at our local kilt shop. It's very handy in Scotland that there are quite so many kilt shops available. So and there is one pretty close to us. So Kinloch Anderson, which is along Commercial Street, I think it's actually in Dock Street. We were able to pop in there and they were very helpful, and they had some dark green knitted kilt socks, machine knitted obviously, but still nonetheless anything in a pinch. And I picked those up for him. So they are all wearing knitted kilt socks, but only 2 of them are mine. And the other thing is that Aurora actually made my youngest son's kilt. He's the one in the red kilt, and she also made her partner's kilt as well, and he's the one in the lovely grey. And so she was well represented, and her making was well represented there too. And you'll also see her in her dress, which I had mentioned a couple of episodes ago, that we had picked up from Armstrong's. So, and a couple of you had requested pictures, and she said that she would rather wait until she was all dressed up and ready, so, which is completely understandable. So she wore her beautiful dress. She wore a lovely black net petticoat underneath it, which made it all kind of puff up, and she was saying that she felt like a cupcake. So she was just lovely. So, and Sonia was there too, my son's partner, Seb's partner. And she was wearing her beautiful blue dress, and she did my hair very nicely. She's just fabulous with hair. So yes, we were all looking very glam. So there we go. I'm just going to share that photograph. And then the other thing that I'm going to share with you is that we were staying in a campsite which falls along the Fife coastal path, and it was such a lovely location. On the day of the wedding in the morning, we went for a walk, and we walked up round and explored a beautiful old walled garden, which is beautifully kept by a group of volunteers who obviously work very hard and obviously have a lot of care and love for that garden, and they look after it really beautifully. So that was incredible. And then after that, we went for a walk a bit further out along a trail of redwood trees. And I didn't even know we had many redwood trees in Scotland, but there we go. There was a lovely row of them, really old ones, very broad and very beautiful, and the light was filtering through. And so I took some footage of that walk, and you'll be able to see all of that at the end. So there we go. We'll just share one more thing. I did go shoe shopping with my mum earlier on in the week, and we were also looking for bags. So I needed a bag to go with my outfit, and we were in John Lewis's, and we saw these absolutely exquisite bags in a range of colours, and it had a really beautiful catch on them, and both Mum and I picked up one, and we were looking at them and thinking, oh, these are absolutely beautiful, and how gorgeous would they be? And then, opened up the flap and took out the price tag, and they were £425 each. So we very gingerly put them back on the shelf and did not buy the £425 bag. Instead, I got this bag here, which was a £16 bag from Next. So significantly more affordable, certainly a lot less fancy, and probably a lot less better made. But all in all, it did the job. It did what it needed to do. So I just thought that was a funny story. So because Mum and Dad had come over, they very kindly, and they drove over this time rather than flying, they drove over and they brought my basket. Now, you might remember this from the podcast that I recorded with my mum back in April, end of April. and we'd actually gone to the gravel sales room because Mum and Dad were having some landscaping done, and the landscaper had underestimated the amount of gravel required. So upon arriving at their home off the airplane, we then went quickly to the gravel sales room before it closed and to put an order for some more gravel in. But while we were there, we discovered these beautiful baskets. So we bought a basket. I got this one, and Mum got a different colour one, but it's got this little bit of elastic. It's even got little pockets on the inside here as well, like this. So, and it's very handy, and it's such a lovely colour. So I think I'm going to get some use out of this summer. But needless to say, the basket, and as it turned out, the contents, would not fit in my suitcase. So Mum and Dad very kindly brought it over for me. So I thought I'd just show you quickly what's inside it, because I now have my beautiful BC Yarn soft silk. And I don't think it's got a colourway, rather than, I think it's SS040, which is not particularly memorable. But I got 3 skeins of that. And I just love that colour. I nearly bought it when I was at, and I bought this from My Little My, which is the local yarn shop in Cognac, which is run by Stephanie. And so when I had visited Stephanie's the year before, I think it was, I had seen this colour and I didn't get it, and I got a different colour, which I also really love because it's kind of like a cinnamon shade, and I do want to knit with that this summer. But when I got home, I was really regretting having not bought this lovely colour here. So when I was there, I got 3 skeins. It is Burette silk, so it's 100% silk, and it's 350 metres for 100 grams, which I think makes that a pretty true sport weight rather than a fingering weight. A heavy fingering weight perhaps, but no, I think that's sport. For me, 350 metres for 100 grams is sport weight. So I've got that in there, and I also have, Mum gave me 2 skeins, 2 balls of this, which is the Creative, I think it's Rico? Yes, it's Rico Design Creative Make It Tweed. And basically it's a very fine, like a thread, I'm trying to show you here, like a thread, but it's got these kind of tweedy bits in it, and it's got all these lovely different colours. So the idea is that you hold this with like a fingering weight or a DK weight or an Aran weight, and it makes the yarn look as though it's tweedy yarn rather than just plain yarn. So I'm quite excited to explore that. 50 grams is 475 metres, and I have 2, which is 950 metres. Is that right? It could be. So that's what I've got. I've got 950 metres of the Rico Make It Tweed. And then we were in a beautiful homeware shop in Poitiers before, which was the day I was getting my flight from Poitiers, because Ryanair fly direct from Edinburgh to Poitiers. So while we were there, my dad purchased this and gave this to me, which is absolutely beautiful, and I wanted to show it to you. It's a bookmark, and it's got this gorgeous swan on it. Isn't it absolutely beautiful? And I could have fitted this into my suitcase, but because I had carry-on luggage rather than checked-in luggage, I was really worried that they would take it away, and if they had taken it away, I would have been really sad. So I decided to pop that in the basket as well, just to make sure that I definitely got it and nobody took it away from me. So I've got that in there too. And then one last thing, which is we went to this botanical fete, which was in the grounds of a castle, the name of which is completely eluding me just now, so I will pop that down here. And while there were lots of people selling different flowers. We bought some lovely roses to plant in Mum and Dad's garden, There was lots of garden furniture and ornaments, and there was also some nice food and some crafty things, and there was a soap stall, a massive soap stall that had amazing soaps in it. So I have bought some soap which would not fit in the suitcase. So I'm just going to show it to you. It is Provence, and it's the Marseille soap. And actually I knew before I went over that I wanted to get some Marseille soap because I'm really trying to reduce the amount of single-use plastics that we have, particularly in the bathroom and in the kitchen. So to that end, I wanted to buy some solid soaps. So this is Verveine, which I bought for the kitchen, and this for the kitchen sink. And then I've got orange fleur d'orangerie, which I bought for the bathroom sink. And for the bath and the shower, I got a couple of bars of this, which is the argan oil, because I love argan oil. So, oh, it smells amazing. Don't mind me, I'm just going to sit and sniff my soap for the rest of the episode. The lovely thing about this bag of soap being inside this basket is that all my yarn now smells absolutely gorgeous. So yes, there we go. That's my soap. So now I have all my parts and pieces back from France, and it's in this beautiful basket. So there we go. I was really pleased with that. The other thing is that the basket actually really matched the yarn that my mum had gifted me while I was over in France, and she bought a kit from Miss Lamotte Yarns, which is based over in South Africa, I think in Cape Town, and we cast on together this beautiful shawl wrap, and it's the weft from Neons and Neutrals. So this is about halfway here, so I'm a little bit further than halfway. So as you can see, it's quite a large project. The yarn is glorious, but as you can also see, it's such a good match for my basket. So this is going to be the next knit that I really kind of zero in on and focus on, because what I want to do is I want to have it finished before I go back over to France in July. And I would love to get some photographs of Mum and I wearing our completed wefts. So I've got lots of ends to weave in. But it's such a fun project. It's been sitting waiting for my attention for a wee while now, and that's been because I've just had so many other projects that have required me, like the Hannah cardigan, for example, for Alex, and another project that I'm about to show you. But yes, I can't wait to return to this. It's got so many interesting techniques, and again, this absolutely required me to leave the village because I had to learn how to do russamine. And this is russamine in the flat, not russamine in the round. And I did have some difficulty figuring out some of that. And I did end up finding a really helpful tutorial, not in English, which showed me how to do russamine in the flat, because all the other tutorials that I found showed me how to do it in the round. But I needed to know how to do it on the wrong side, because on the purl side, because that's where I was becoming a bit unstuck. It's also got these lateral braids, and certainly my lateral braids further through the project are much better and much tighter than the lateral braids. I don't know if you'll be able to see. You can see that they're really open at the top here, where I've really closed that up. Here, my tension is much better in the later lateral braids than they are in the earlier ones, which is fine. It's a learning process. And then we've got these wonderful slip stitch textural designs, and then we've also got this linen stitch too, which is great. And so it kind of, and then a little bit of colour work, and in fact at one point you have to do colour work on the wrong side. And actually that was the first, so you have to purl stranded colour work. And that was the first time that I had ever purled colour work. So quite a few firsts in this, just like with the Hannah cardigan, and quite a few techniques that I had never done before, which required me to slow down and enter kind of a beginner's mindset and not expect too much of myself before I actually attempted it, and just to give it a go, because at the end of the day it's only knitting and we can always rip it back and have another go. And so some of this has required some ripping back and giving some things another go, and that's completely fine. And like I said, I can mark my improvement in certain techniques as I moved through the shawl itself. So I think the only concern that I had was because my lateral braids earlier on in the project were so much looser than the ones later on, and also because I had some issues with trying to carry my yarn up my I-cord, which is what's resulted in lots of these ends. I was worried that I wasn't going to have enough yarn to complete the project, because the yarn comes as a kit, so you're given the yarn that you need for it. But there was 2 skeins of the main colour, and I was a bit worried that I wasn't going to have enough, because I thought maybe I'd used up too much on those earlier lateral braids and on having to cut my yarn instead of carrying the yarn up the I-cord. However, I got to over halfway, because this is the halfway point. I got to over halfway, but I think I was here somewhere when I ran out of the first skein of yarn. So that shows me, because it's a mirrored design, so exactly the same pattern is going to be on this other side here. I know now that I have enough yarn to complete the project. So that was a big relief. I certainly found myself speeding up as I got towards the halfway point, because I really wanted to see if I was going to be playing yarn chicken at the end of the project. But I'm pretty safe, so that's very good news. So this is a design from Neons and Neutrals. It is actually by Karen Crochet, who is the yarn dyer behind Miss Lamotte Yarns. So it's her design and it's her yarn. This is such a beautiful collection. There's so many designs that I want to knit. Sorry, I'm trying to find the pattern. There we go. They have, so that's the colorway one that I have. So I'm going to have exactly the same as this one that's in the book. And then there was this other colorway here too, which has got the more neutral with the pink and this beautiful chartreuse green. So yes, that's where it's from. But like I said, there's just so many beautiful designs. I absolutely love this design. It is on my bucket list, my knitting bucket list. It's called Wervel, and it's by Micah Van Geyn. And then there's so many actually. There's Punked, and this is by Julia Wilkins, and she's the designer who designed the sugar sweater that I knitted as my birthday sweater a couple of years ago. I really love her designs. I think they're very, very clever and very classic, but with a twist, which I really enjoy. So the other one that I'm really interested in knitting is this one here. And this is, I think it's called the Confluence. Yeah, it's the Confluence, and that's by Caitlin Turofsky. So let's see if I can find another one to show you. There's the blue one. Here we go. And basically you're holding 2 different types of yarn together and then dividing and then knitting them singly for the cuffs and the hem and the neckband, and then together for the fabric of the body and the sleeves, which I think is very clever. and very classic. So I'm very interested in knitting that one as well. But I mean, honestly, I could close my eyes and open this book anywhere and start and cast on the first pattern that I came to, because there is not a bad pattern in this whole collection. They are all stunning. So that was a good investment, that one. And I did buy the book for my mum for her birthday, so we both have copies of the book. So yes, that's our own little mini make along with each other. And like I said, that's what I'm going to be focusing on next. So I'm really excited to crack on with this again, because it's really calling me. And yes, I can't wait. But before I do that, I've got another project, which is, I should say, I'm keeping it currently in my Gran's old knitting bag, which you might recognise as well, because this is what I used as my colour inspiration for what became the Shawlography shawl by Stephen West, which was the mystery knit along from 2001. Yes. So it's staying in there just now. Okay, the thing that I'm working on quite manically, if I'm completely honest, is this this one here. Now, this is my Lucca scarf. It's a design by Julie Hoover. As you can see, I've got quite a lot done. It's a beautiful scarf design by Julie Hoover. It's knitted in lace weight, and it has this kind of eyelet design on it. Now, I cast this on as part of the Julie Hoover Mayak Knitting Posse KAL, which has got the hashtag JH Mayak Posse KAL. And it's been going since April 5th, and the conclusion of it is the 17th of June. And I am knitting mine in, there was lovely discounts and things on Mayak yarn. Mayak yarn's not very easy for me to get, and so I decided that instead of using Mayak, I would use a yarn that was actually local to me. And so I went into Ginger Twist and I bought some of Ginger's hand dyed, and I bought the Splendid Lace, which is a BFL silk blend. Look at it gleaming there. I'm struggling to get an accurate picture of it because it is there you go. Maybe? No. And it's in the colourway Gore Blimey. And it is like a true lime green. And it is glorious. I really like knitting, and I like knitting lace weight, and I like knitting lace. But what I quite often find is that lace patterns can quite often look a little bit dated. And so I'm really interested in exploring how we can make lace more contemporary. And I think one of the ways we can do that is by choosing patterns like this Lucca scarf, which is very classic. It's got this geometric rather than kind of a floral based pattern, which I think a lot of lace designs go for kind of a more floral or sort of a fancy pattern, whereas this is very simple and it's geometric, and it's got these long lines. So we've got this beautiful clean line geometric simple design, and then it's knitted in this high luxe yarn, which not only has silk in it but also has a traditional British breed, the Blue Face Leicester fibre blended through. So it's got that lovely mixture of something quite traditional with something very luxury, and it's in this incredible colour, which again is not necessarily a colour I think that people would necessarily associate with a lace shawl or a lace scarf. And I was really intrigued by, what it would look like to use this beautiful luxe fibre with this incredible pop of colour in this gorgeous classic design. And I just absolutely love how it is turning out. So as you can see, I've knitted a lot. I am actually nearly at the end. I am about halfway through the third last chart. Now, when I downloaded the pattern, I'm going to tell you this. When I downloaded the pattern for the Lucca scarf, I glanced over it and then flicked to the next page and realised that actually the whole pattern was included on the first page, which really shocked me. And then I slowed down and actually looked at it and discovered just how incredibly elegant and clever this pattern is. What a very professional and intelligent pattern writer Julie Hoover clearly is. And she has all that information, everything that you need, given to you in a really clear, simple, straightforward, concise way. There's no excess. That said, there doesn't need to be. And she has, you know, all the information that you require, just delivered in a very, you know, simple, beautiful way. It's a really elegant is what I would. In fact, when you look at her patterns, when you look at her designs, I think elegant would be one of the simple and elegant, but very, very cleverly done. So I think that's how you would describe her garments, and certainly it describes her pattern writing as well. And so then I realised that all the other parts of the pattern were charts. So there are 5 charts altogether, and some of those charts you knit once and other charts you knit more than once. So you end up with 9 repeats of, well, not 9 repeats, but 9 chart sections that add up to the whole piece. So I am halfway through the 7th chart. The next 2 charts are shorter. They're less rows than the others. And I'm telling you this because not only do I want to have it completed by the end of the KAL, which is the 17th, and I don't even know what the day is today. 6th. Today is the 6th. So theoretically, I have 11 days to get this completed, but I've actually given myself an earlier deadline. So I really want to have this scarf completed and washed and blocked, and it's not going to take long to dry, I'm sure, because it's this very, very fine knit, but and with the lacy holes as well, plenty of ventilation for drying. But I want to get all of that completed by this coming Sunday. And that's because it is Ginger Twist's 10th birthday party on Sunday. So I'll just tell you what the details of that are. It's happening this Sunday. It is 3 till 7 in the afternoon, and it's at 24 Royal Terrace, which is not too far from the shop at all. There's going to be a mini pop-up of Ginger Twist yarns, of Woolly Originals, of Murat Mag, of Journal of Scottish Yarns, and Made by Kelly O. And Kelly O does these beautiful upcycled accessories using plastic bags, and she's also a knitwear designer. She designed the Septennial Twist and I think matching mitts for Ginger Twist's 7th birthday, so keep an eye on what is coming there. Ginger Twist has been doing, Jess of Ginger Twist has been doing 10 days of ginger, so every day for the last 6 days so far, there has been a new announcement. So there's a beautiful pink project bag, there's a lovely new pin just come out. One day was 10% off all books, and yesterday's announcement was the party that's happening to celebrate the birthday on Sunday. Oh gosh, what day is it on Sunday? Is it the 10th? I don't even know. This coming Sunday. So I'm all confused with my dates. No, it must be the 11th. So anyway, this is the Lucca scarf by Julie Hoover. It's knitted in Ginger Twist's hand-dyed yarn, Gorblimey in splendid lace. I want to have it done and washed and blocked by Sunday because I really want to be able to wear that this weekend. So I'm not far off finishing it. I think it will be done. So that's what I'm working on right now. And then as soon as that's finished, I'm going to switch back to the weft. So I will actually be taking the weft with me to the Knit in Public Day event that is being organised by Melinda of Zakami Yarns, who's a wonderful yarn dyer based here in Edinburgh, and Odd of Bubbles and Berries, who has her own podcast and also produces the most beautiful embroidered project bags. So I will share links to both of them, but they are organising a Knit in Public event. It's very casual, very open, I think, and it's going to be over at the Meadows, which is in pretty central Edinburgh, and more on the south side. And I think we're gathering round about the Pavilion Cafe. So bring your picnic blankets and sit and knit for a bit in public. There is lots of other Knit in Public Day events running. You should check out their website. They have various different listings, but other than that, I mean, you can just show up in public and knit, and that's you part of the event. It's quite loose structured, but like this podcast. So yes, I'm hoping to do that on Saturday, and so I will be taking my weft with me, because I'm absolutely anticipating that my Lucca scarf will be off the needles by that point. Wish me luck. So, as I said, at the birthday party on Sunday, one of the vendors at the pop-up shop, the pop-up show, is going to pop-up marketplace, that's the word, that's what I'm looking for, is the Journal of Scottish Yarns. And I was very fortunate to meet up with Susan of the Journal of Scottish Yarns on last Tuesday. Yes, it was last Tuesday. And we had a lovely blether over a cup of coffee, and she very kindly gifted me this, which is the 3rd issue of the Journal of Scottish Yarns. Now, I think I've shown you the other 2 issues of this publication. What I will tell you is that these are substantial, and like, look, there's a lot in here. These are quite thick magazines. They're incredibly beautifully produced. They have a range of patterns, both knitted and crochet, and then quite often there's something else that's a little bit different. So they've got the Magnolia cowl here, which is made up of pin loom squares crocheted together. So there's just a really interesting range of crafts. But what I would also say is, like, the patterns, as beautiful as they are, and they are very beautiful. In fact, I have an intention to knit this, which is the Thonan top by Cat Weaver of the Heather and Hops podcast. So I'm going to be casting that on, certainly. There's another version of it there. So we've got that, but beyond that, the first half of the book, of the publication, is just full of the most fascinating articles and just incredible photography. And so this is without pattern, improvised designs and mindful making. Look at this crochet. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? And then another article we have here is Weaver of Weather. It's all about weaving. That looks a little bit like the Russamine, doesn't it? That I've just been working in the weft, which is the point of it, I think. And then there's quite a lot in this collection about, in this edition, about linen. And so there's some really interesting photographs of the linen factories and the mills, the millies. These are called the millies. And it's just an incredibly beautiful publication. I just really recommend it. So it's got a really interesting mix about creativity, creative practice. Look at this amazing cloak, I should say. and history and geography, and then alongside that you've got all these incredible patterns. So for going over to New York in October, it's my intention to knit at least one pattern from this current edition and one pattern from a previous edition. So I'm quite excited to be casting those on soon, just after I've got these other projects, which are really important to me, off the needles. And I think I'll still have plenty time to get that all completed by October. So yes, I'm really interested in those, and thank you so much, Susan, for gifting me that issue. It is an absolute stunning achievement, truly, to produce such a beautiful publication, and I highly recommend to everybody to try and get your hands on it, because yeah, it's a very special publication. So what else do I have for you? Well, I didn't go to Tangled, which was a yarn festival in Galashiels, because obviously we were otherwise occupied this weekend. However, a lot of members of my knit night went along, and everybody seems to have had an absolutely wonderful time. So I'm really hoping that they decide to run it again next year, in which case I will absolutely go. They brought out a pattern which I wanted to share with you, which is called Tangled Galashiels 23. It's designed by Samira, who's one of the organisers of Tangled, and it features a traditional houndstooth colourwork yoke, which I think is really lovely, and yeah, I've certainly got my eye on that as well. All these patterns, I need an extra pair of hands. But yes, I do have another event that I am actually planning to go to, which is the Scottish Yarn Festival's Reveal Day, which is going to be on the 24th of June, and it's going to be at Celia McWheely over in Kirkintilloch. And I think that's going to be a great event. There's going to be a pop-up marketplace with 3 yet to be announced vendors. So those are currently a secret and a surprise. So I'm excited to find out who's going to be there. They're going to announce their full programme, and tickets will be released at 7 p.m. on the 1st of July for the Scottish Yarn Festival, which will be held on the 9th and the 10th of September. As I've mentioned before, I really recommend getting on their newsletter list if you are intending to come along and buy a ticket, because then you will be in the know and in the loop, and you'll be informed about when those tickets are available. You'll be reminded when those tickets are available so that you can go and purchase that. And yeah, I'm really excited to find out what the programme is going to entail and see which vendors are going to be there. It's really, the cornerstone event, I would say, in Scotland for yarn and for knitters and for crocheters. So yes, I'm very excited about that, and looking forward to going along and celebrating that launch with everybody there. So another piece of news actually that just came from the Scottish Yarn Festival is that they are going to be at Woolen Folk, which is hugely exciting because I'm going to be at Woolen Folk as well. So Woolen Folk is a festival which is occurring the day before Rhinebeck. So that will be the 20th of October, which is the Friday. It's being held at Stone Ridge Orchard, which is in Stone Ridge, New York State. I have no idea where that is, but we will find it on a map and we'll make our way there. I'm saying we because that's going to be me and Rebecca Clow of the Creabea podcast, and we're meeting up with Mega of the Skeins of Dreams podcast, and Mega is very kindly driving us, where we need to go and where we need to be. And we're going to spend some really lovely time together, and I'm so excited about all of that. So there's lots of plans in the making, but one of the plans is that I think we're going to be at Woolen Folk on the Friday, which is incredibly exciting now that we know that Eva of the Scottish Yarn Festival will also be there. So, and we'll get to see her, and yeah, it sounds like Scotland's going to be very well represented this year at Rhinebeck, and that's a lot of fun. So yay! But yeah, I'm going to be at other ones as well. I've got quite a full knitting calendar this year. So I'm also going to be at Northeast Wool Show, and that is on the 12th to 13th of August. I said in the last episode that it was in Gateshead. I've no idea where I got that information from because that's a load of rubbish. I suspect I made it up. It's actually at the Newcastle racecourse. Thank you so much to Hazel in the comments for picking me up on that and keeping me right, because yes, I'm glad that I didn't end up going to Gateshead while everybody else was at the racecourse, because that would have been sad and rather awkward and embarrassing. So but that's on the 12th and the 13th, and then Yarndale is on the 23rd and 24th of September, and that's at Skipton at the auction market. So yeah, I'm looking forward to going along to that as well. So there's lots of like nitty plans for this summer, and also of course I have some knitting plans too. So I had spoken last time of the Tankar tee, which is a beautiful design that's just come out from Anina, and she has Aniyuti Knits. I practiced that before, Aniyuti Knits, and she has just brought out the Tankar tee, and it's knitted in DK weight cotton, and I absolutely love this. I think it's, sorry, I've got a wee fly. Ugh. So yes, she's just released it. So it just came out last Friday. I'm really excited about this one. I want to knit this in my Kremke, is it Kremke? I think it is. Reborn Jeans yarn, which I bought last year and haven't used, but I'm enormously excited about it. It's such an unusual yarn because I think it says 300 meters to 100 grams. Now I'd say again 300 to 350 meters is sport weight, but it is actually listed as worsted weight. It's actually listed as worsted weight yarn, and it really actually does knit up at that weight. So I think this design is a DK weight, as I said. So I will swatch anyway and make sure that I've got the right, because it is such an unusual fibre and yarn. I will absolutely swatch and make sure that I've got it right. But I love the feature of the garter stitch up the top moving into the stockinette. I really like the shape of it. It's quite boxy but very elegant, and I think it would be a really lovely piece to have over this summer, and also then to wear later on over other longer layers. So yes, I totally got my eye on that. I had also mentioned the Soho top by K. last time, and I also mentioned the Scarborough Shrug, which is by Pam Allen, which I had seen on the Knitting Posse podcast. I think Kate was wearing that, and I really liked the look of that. I was watching the Knitting with Kim and Jonna, and in their most recent episode, and they mentioned the Droplet Capelet by Denise Byron, and I have had my eye on that just for the longest time because I think it's so elegant, and I think it would look so beautiful, and it uses relatively little yarn. So I again, as bumped it up my queue. I would really love to have that as well. And then obviously there's the Tolsta tee. Now I'm just going to show you this because I have made absolutely no progress on this whatsoever because I have been working on the cardigan and the lucca. But this is my Tolsta tee. I'm knitting it in Drops Muscat. Again, it's a DK weight cotton. I think this colour is called taupe. This colour is black. That's also Drops Muscat. And then I'm holding some glittery yarn that I picked up from Sostren Gren when I was there in Glasgow a couple of weeks ago. So it's just going to be a basic stripy top. And I'm really excited about cracking on with that a bit more as well, just as soon as I get all of these other things off my needles that I've got deadlines for them. Entirely self-imposed deadlines, I should say. They're galvanizing more than anything else. So although that makes me wonder actually how you relate to deadlines in your knitting, or in your making. Is it something that galvanizes you? Because I know for some it can really prevent progress as well. So it can create an obstacle and and kind of a hurdle in our making practice, and can really stop us from showing up for the knitting or for the making that we actually want to do. So I know that that kind of approach is not suitable for everybody and it doesn't work for all, but it does seem to work for me. So yes, so those are some knitting plans, but bizarrely, I don't really know how to say this, I have some crochet plans. And the reason why I don't know how to say it is because I don't know how to crochet. So that's, it feels rather audacious to say that I have crochet plans. But I am just seeing so many beautiful crochet designs come. I feel like crochet is really having a moment. I think it's been coming for a long time. And certainly in the past, I've seen some beautiful crochet designs that have really caught my eye. But just latterly, I just seem to be gravitating towards all of these gorgeous crochet designs. I also wonder whether crochet is like the craft that is then more suitable for summer garments, and maybe the knitting is more suitable for winter garments, although I don't really like being as absolute as that. But the top that has really caught my eye is the Limonata top by Anna D, and it's just come out in the most recent Pom Pom magazine, Pom Pom 45. I'll pop a photograph of it here because it is just stunning. It is so beautiful. I would love to have this top. And as I say, I can't crochet, so my skills for for attaining this are so far and beyond, but I think it could really serve as motivation for learning or for brushing up. No, I don't even have them to brush up. So acquiring the skills to be able to do something like that. So it can remain kind of a fantasy piece that I'm going to be able to work up to, because not only do I not know how to crochet, I absolutely don't know how to read a crochet pattern. So, and as we know, reading a pattern is a skill unto itself. So yes, there's lots of things pushing me outside of my village mentality, my knitting village, into the neighbouring village of crochet. So I'm really excited about that. There's another beautiful tee that came out in Pom Pom 44 called the Weffin Top, I think it is, by Joanne Fowler. Again, I'll pop a photograph up of it, and it just, like, it honestly boggles my mind that this effect in the fabric can be created. It's just incredible, and I would love to be able to do something like that, but again, it's so far beyond. So I think I need to come back to something that's a little bit more manageable, perhaps. I've been watching It's a Sarah podcast with Sarah, who's based over in the Netherlands. And she brings out, sorry, it's my tummy rumbling. It's obviously coming up to lunchtime. She brings out 4 episodes a week. 2 on Monday and 2 on Friday, 1 in English and 1 in Dutch. So obviously I watch the English because I have no Dutch. So, but I so enjoy them. And in her most recent episode, which was episode 84, she had a very strong crochet focus, and she wore the most beautiful cardigan. And I've seen this cardigan on her podcast before and really loved it. It's the Ariana cardigan by Amy Christophers, who is the same designer behind the Pressed Flowers designs and also behind the Felix sweater and cardigan. It's got that really lovely eyelet detail on the raglan. So this Ariana cardigan is made of granny squares, and then it has a knitted hem and button band and cuff and neckband. And I really like that combination of crochet fabric with knitted finishing. And so that's really kind of got me thinking, and I just really want to explore crochet. So one of the things that made me think a bit more about this is that I have these incredible mini skeins from Jana of the Finnish Knitting Stories podcast. I'll show you them here. Some of them anyway. Aren't these absolutely beautiful? I just love these. And then I've got some gorgeous like little pops of colour and neon. And I had started knitting a anthology throw, which is a very large throw, circular throw pattern by Helen Stewart that came out last year. And I cast it on and I started knitting it. And this is how far I got. But then I decided I wasn't really liking it. I wasn't really enjoying it. And I love this yarn so much that I wanted to do something with it that, you know, really, that just made me hugely happy. So I took that all off the needles. And so this little collection, and it's sitting in my beautiful yarn bowl that Ross and Jenny, my brother and my sister-in-law, gave to me for Christmas a couple of years ago. So all of these are sitting in here, and I've also got a full skein of her beautiful hand-dyed yarn here, which is in the colourway Fig, and it's 70% merino, 20% yak, 10% nylon, 400 meters for 100 grams. And I just love this. So I've got these beautiful, and I've just added a couple of extra skeins in here that I've been given or acquired at various points. My son Seb and Sonia brought this back from their little trip to Amsterdam, and they visited Stephen and Penelope, and they bought me a lovely mini skein. So I'm just kind of collecting all these little mini skeins, and I just really want to do some granny stripes. I've done granny stripes before. I cast on a granny stripe blanket just before the first big lockdown. And I was really, really enjoying it actually, and I was going great with it. And then for some reason, well, I think all that whole time was incredibly chaotic, wasn't it? And a bit disorientating. So I ended up putting it down, and I've never picked it up since. And that was the last time that I crocheted. So I can't remember how to do it at all. So I'm going to have to watch some tutorials. I'm going to have to look at some books, I think. I'm going to have to try and figure out how these stitches are created and how we make this fabric. If you have any beginner crochet resources that you can recommend, that you've had a go at and that you've enjoyed, or that you know would be a really good starting place for me, then please do leave that in the comments. It would really be very appreciated, because it was shortly after I kind of thought of all of these gorgeous mini skeins and what I could do with them with a crochet hook, that something very strange happened. So I'm just going to share this with you. I was watching Ivana of the Republic of Me podcast. She put up a new episode. I love Ivana. You might remember that she had hand spun some beautiful yarn for me that I knitted up into a Saturday shrug. And it feels like a hug from Ivana every time I wear it. So it's a really lovely thing. So I was watching her latest episode, and while I was watching that, I received a notification on my phone, and it was from somebody posting to our Knit Night group, which we have on WhatsApp. And and it was saying that some yarn from the Yarn Collective was on a massive discount over on Lovecrafts. Now, this group I affectionately think of as Yarn Enabler Scotland, or YES for short. So we tend to post when there's sales on, or when there's something particularly beautiful, some beautiful yarn that's recently been shared, or so that tends to get shared in this particular group. So this yarn has gone on sale, so I had a quick look on Lovecrafts. It is the Yarn Collective's, gosh, what's it called? Fleurville yarn, which is 100% superwash merino. It's hand dyed. I think it's hand dyed in Peru. A percentage of the yarn price goes to charity, I think, though I can't remember exactly the details on that. It is 4-ply. And they had quite a limited range of colours when I went to look, but all those colours look quite similar to these kinds of shades here. Yeah. So it really kind of caught my eye because I thought, oh, those are my colours. And so I kind of thought, oh, wouldn't it be interesting to get some of this yarn and make like crochet granny squares and make like a really beautiful blanket. That might be really nice for our bedroom, and it might actually galvanise me to get around to actually painting the other 3 walls, because I've only painted 1 wall in the bedroom. I desperately need to paint the walls in my flat, but I keep putting it off because it's such a big job. Anyway, so I looked at the yarn, I kind of figured what I would need, and I did a quick calculation, and I thought, Amy, for goodness sake, put it down, put it away. You don't need it, just, you know. And then, in a very strange turn of events, Ivana said that that Lovecrafts is one of the few websites that she can still purchase from Britain from, because she's based over in Cyprus. And since Brexit, a lot of tax and customs is causing issues with yarn, with any purchase being exported. And so Lovecrafts apparently is one of the few that she can buy from that doesn't charge her extra tax. So she was on there and she discovered that the Yarn Collective Fleurville 4-ply was on a massive discount, and she showed the colours that she had bought. And I was like, this is a sign. So I went back and I completed my order. It is clearly meant to be. So I now have 8 skeins of this Fleurville 4-ply from the Yarn Collective coming to me. I've got 4 skeins of Brunia, which is a kind of a warm neutral, and I have 1 skein each of Poppy, Peony, Hibiscus and Hellebore, yeah, as in Helleborus. So I really love the colours. I think I could come up with some really beautiful granny squares just as soon as I learn how. Again, Aurora did once teach me how to do a granny square, so I might just get her to sit down with me again and talk me through it. So this is me definitely leaving my village, my comfort zone. I am going to have to come back to a beginner's mindset. And I don't know about you, but whenever you embark on something very new to you, like for example a language or a craft or whatever it is, or a particular skill set, it can feel pretty daunting. It requires us to be willing to make mistakes, to not have anything polished or perfect for probably really ever, but certainly not in the beginning stages of learning something. We have to get comfortable with not being good at something, and yeah, we have to accept the inelegance of our own process, and yeah, so that's something that I'm going to be embracing, because actually I think what's really on the other side of that is expansion and joy and fun. And I think there's a real invitation to kind of loosen up a bit around all of that, all around the kind of rigidity that sometimes sets in around mastering a craft, with going right back to the very beginning and going, okay, I have no working knowledge of this whatsoever. I have big plans, I have big intentions, but I'm just going to have to start with this first stitch. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be going back and starting with the first stitch, and the 1 crochet hook that I have, which I think is actually my daughter's and I didn't give back. Rora, if you're looking for it, I still have it. and yeah, giving it a go. So that's my crochet plans. However, that was not my only purchase, because now I'm realizing I didn't bring this through either. I did also purchase some Drops Kid Silk, Curry Creative, which is based in Stirling in the Thistle Centre, is no longer, I think they're no longer going to be sort of set up as a yarn shop, and they're much more like as a charity enterprise. with a focus on spinning and weaving. And so they are kind of getting rid of a lot of their stock. And so they've got quite large discounts on Rowan and on Drops. And so I bought a 10 pack of Drops Kid Silk, and I got it for £26.40 plus £4.50 postage and packaging. So for £30.90 I got 10 balls of mohair. And I have yarn that's in that colour. I think I've got woolly knit, British wool, 4-ply. I got 2 of the 200-gram hanks. So that's 400 grams of 4-ply in the colourway Harvest. And I got the colourway Curry from the Drops Kid Silk. So I thought the two would actually work really well together. So yes, it will help me release more from my stash by adding a little bit extra in. That's what I'm telling myself. But I just love a bargain. So there we go. That's me. Those are my acquisitions, and I'm really pleased with all of them. So I'm really excited about them and about the possibilities that they have for me. And so I'm going to wind up this time with a poem, which I also haven't done for a little while. But I've been looking through, excuse me, I've been looking through this book here, and it's Everyday Wonder by Dr. Bob Leckridge, who's my dad. And he self-published this collection of poems a wee while back now, and he gifted, 2018, and he gifted me a copy. And I was flicking through it and I found a really perfect poem in it, because in the last episode I had shared that, you know, coming out of the lockdowns, that I felt that it had made me a more inward turned person, and that social situations which had before felt very natural to me, and it felt like something I would lean into and seek out, had become a little bit more challenging in that regard. And so I had shared that on last episode, and your comments and responses were so moving, because it made me realise that, you know, we're very much in the same boat, and actually also that people are having different responses to this very unique event within our generation, within this particular era, within this particular moment. That it's for some people it's had an opposite effect. And so we're all so different. We're all created so differently, and we're all going to respond to different things and in different ways. But yes, I felt very touched by everybody's comments, and yeah, that we've kind of collectively moved through this experience together and had an individual response as well as a collective response. So I found this poem in my dad's collection of poems that I wanted to share with you today, because I think it really speaks to that. And then after that, I'm going to share with you some footage, and then that'll be the end. We'll cycle back again next week. But this poem is called Stand Out from the Crowd, and it's got this amazing photograph that my dad took of this chameleon. Stand out from the crowd. Do I really want to stand out from the crowd? Won't people think I'm odd, not just different? Won't people say, you're not one of us? Won't people tell me, you're going to get singled out? Won't I get picked on? Do I really want to be invisible? Won't people ignore me? Won't people just walk on by? Won't I be treated as just a number or one of them? Them, not us. We all stand out from the crowd. No two of us are identical, never were, never are, never will be. If you screw up your eyes, the crowd is an illusion of sameness. We all belong in the crowd. Not one of us is separate. Never was, never is, never will be. If you look closely, the crowd is a web of connections. So yes, really honouring us as a web of connections, of a group of individuals who are all uniquely different, uniquely special, but choosing to be in relationship with one another, choosing to be in community. So on that note, my loves, I'm going to leave you with this beautiful footage of the walled garden and of the redwood trees. And I will see you all again really soon. But in the meantime, happy knitting, happy crocheting, happy making. And I'll speak to you all really soon.